Good morning, everybody. This is Archana here from Read, Write, Inspire. This is the month of October. There's just one more month for NaNoWriMo. In case you're wondering what is NaNoWriMo and what am I so excited about, NaNoWriMo is National November Writing Month. So in this month, millions of writers from across the globe come together to write a book of 50,000 words each. The kind of camaraderie among the members and the warmth, love, support and motivation that they give each other is simply fantastic, and this is what makes NaNoWriMo so special. And because NaNoWriMo brings out such a positive vibe in the entire environment, if you're a writer and you're hearing about it for the first time, head over to nanowrimo.org and register yourself. In this video, we are going to see a few tips on how you can prepare yourself during October, which is popularly known as Preptober, so that you can give NaNoWriMo your all in the next month, that's November. So stay tuned. In this video, we are going to see 7 questions that you can ask yourself during this Preptober. Why do you want to write a book? Now, of course, why do you want to be a writer? Why do you want to write a book? These are all big questions, and sometimes we aren't very clear on why really we want to do it, which is totally all right, But to some extent, I want you to think about, why do you want to write a novel? Maybe your mind is into writing short stories, or maybe you want to write a non-fiction book. Of course, NaNoWriMo says that you should write a novel in the month of November, but then there are a lot of rebels who end up writing 50,000 words of short stories and or else poetry, and there are also people who write a non-fiction book, so it's fine. So before you go ahead and decide, for whatever project that you're deciding for NaNoWriMo, give it a small thought and think about, why do you want to write that particular thing? That brings us to our next question. What do you want to write? So like I told you, it doesn't always need to be a novel. There are many people who end up either writing short stories or poetry or non-fiction or their memoir, so it could be anything. But again, come to a decision right before. Don't think that you would just sit on November 1st and decide what are you going to write for that particular month. So do have an idea on what you're going to work on during this month itself. What is your methodology for writing a book? So as you know, some of us just stick to a novel and we end up just pantsing our way through it, and some of us sit and plot out the entire structure and then we can write our book. So whatever it might be, it's totally fine. In fact, I know that there are many of you who might be having a hybrid system of them both. I have a video which talks about how you can outline your novel for NaNoWriMo especially. What I'll do is I'll leave a link to it somewhere here. I'm not sure where it would be seen on the screen, so just click here. There would be a video which would tell you how you can outline your novel for NaNoWriMo. I'll also leave a link to it in the description box below. Next, we come to the question, how do you want to write your novel? So how here means the simple nitty-gritties. Like, are you going to write it by hand? Are you going to type it out? Are you going to use some software like Scrivener, or are you going to stick to Microsoft Word? In fact, recently I came across this software called Om Writer, and I in fact immediately paid my way for it, because Om Writer in fact just removes all distractions from the screen, and it's only you and your writing, and it's also got some of these ambient musics, and one of the ambient music that it has is a train journey. So it just gives me that exact feeling as if I'm on a train and I'm chugging along, and after 20-25 minutes I reach at a station and I can hear all the noises of that station, and then once again it starts chugging along. So I really love Om Writer. So yeah, so you can have an idea on what you want to use for writing your novel. So whatever it is, decide beforehand, because I know a friend of mine who wanted to write on Scrivener, and she downloaded the software on November 1st and spent the first 3 to 4 days just learning how Scrivener works. Now that's not the right thing to do in the month of November. So whatever you want to decide on, decide it beforehand itself, please. Now we come to our next question. Where do you want to write a book? I know you might be wondering, aren't these such simple questions? Why is she even talking about such things? But believe me, it will help you a lot to have a clarity on such things beforehand. For instance, for me, there are 101 distractions at home. Initially, I didn't even have a study of my own. Now I do have a room which is a study. It does have a door which I don't close because I'm always scared that the boys are going to burn down the house if I would be all inside the study, huddled with my writing, So that's just my own crazy me. But just think about it, where do you want to write your book? For me, if I head to Starbucks, which is quite near my place, I concentrate immensely on my entire focus is on my project. I don't know why. I think that's also going to be something like a big gesture in my part going to Starbucks, because as you know, the coffee is about 300 bucks, and on top of that I love their cakes, so my bill is never below 600. And finally, at the end of the day, that's a lot of money for a writer to write for one single day, and we're not getting paid in that kind of money. So of course, working in Starbucks, though it's a lovely thing, it's very expensive. So if I go to Starbucks, then I mean business. I will not distract myself with anything. I do not log into the internet provided at Starbucks. My entire focus and attention is only on my project. I decide beforehand what I'm going to work on. If it's going to be number of words, then I decide beforehand I am not getting out of Starbucks till I finish my 3000 words. Or it could be that I want to structure a screenplay, then I would go there, sit there and decide that until I have that particular structure, this much of work done, I'm not going to get out of Starbucks. Because I have that kind of a focus at Starbucks with no distractions, I am actually pretty successful in doing this. So what I do is, during NaNoWriMo, at least once in a week, I work at Starbucks. And in case, usually what I try to do is I try to keep my Starbucks visit towards the weekend, either on a Friday, Saturday or Sunday. And whatever I have not caught up in that week, maybe there is some shortfall in my word count, I try and cope up and do it on that Starbucks visit. So that's how it's for me. So you also should decide, where do you want to write your novel? And that brings me to the next question, which is, when do you want to write a book? For me personally, the only hours that I can work really effectively is from 10 in the morning to 1, at which time I break for my lunch. So those 3 hours are my precious writing hours. Irrespective of whatever project I'm working on, those are the 3 hours that I can really get some focused work done. However, that may not always be true for everybody. There may be people who might be working on you might be someone who is working at a full-time job. So obviously for you, an hour or two in the morning before your entire morning rush starts, or an hour or two in the evening could be a much better way to write. In fact, if you are okay about writing on a mobile device in your commute, then you could probably, really write a lot in your commute itself. For instance, I know a writer who got her entire first novel written only while she was commuting in Bombay in her taxi to and fro. So think about it, and decide, when are you going to write the book. It's very important to make that kind of a commitment to yourself, that these are the 2 or 3 hours that I'm going to devote to NaNoWriMo every single day. And unless you block it in your calendar and keep it as hours fixed, it's difficult to get it done. Now let's get to the last question. about what you should ask yourself before you start writing your novel. The very last question that you need to ask yourself is, who are you writing for? I know this is something I feel it's very important. It's something which all of us as writers tend to ignore. But what happens is, when we write a novel, there are so many things which intimidate us. For instance, we wonder, is the publisher going to like this? Is my grandmother going to be offended that I wrote this? Is my grandfather going to feel shameful that I wrote such a scene in my book? Or what is my mother going to think when she reads this? Or will my husband even like this? There are so many, tons of questions, and believe me, when you try to please everybody, you're going to please nobody. So instead, have one person as your audience. Think that you're writing that book, that you're narrating that story to that one single person. It could be anybody. It could be your best friend, your husband, your wife, or your mother, your father, anybody. It doesn't make a difference. But when you think of a single person as an audience, your intimidations fall off. Your fear towards satisfying everybody, or being wanting to the approval of everybody, it all falls away. And then you have this one single person whom you need to please with your narration skills. And after that, it's kind of easy, because whenever you have to make a decision, you can always think, okay, will XYZ like this when I say, or will he not like it? That's it. It becomes as simple as that. So instead of trying to please everybody, try to write your story for one person. Decide, who are you writing for? With that, I come to the end of this video. I will put a list of all these questions down below so that you can just go through it. I'll also leave a link to my blog article where I explain about each of these questions in much more detail. I'll leave a link to that too below in the description box. If you liked this video, please click like below. That would mean a lot. Subscribe to the channel, press that bell button, and you will be notified every time I post a new video. Stay tuned, stay happy. Bye bye.